This is a quick tutorial on how to install, access, and use the HOPR node admin, also referred to as the HOPR admin. So before doing this, you'll need to make sure you've correctly set up a HOPR safe and HOPR node. So make sure you've completed the entire onboarding process, including having been passed the waitlist, added your node, added funds to your node, and set out a WX HOPR allowance. Only then can you access the node admin correctly. So let's look at the documentation. So if you're a DAP node user, you don't actually have to install HOPR admin. It's installed by default through your package, and you can access it by clicking this UI icon under your package information. But if you're using Docker like me, then you'll have to run a single command to install HOPR admin separately. So if you copy this command and run it, you should get an output similar to this. But once it's complete, you're good to go. And then you can access the node admin by going to localhost with the port 3000. If you're using a VPS, which I am, you'll need to replace localhost with your VPS IP address. So this is actually my correct IP address. So I can actually just navigate to this page, which is open here. And if my node is up and running, I should get something similar to this. So now you want to connect your node. You can do so by clicking here or on the top right over here. And you can fill out your node details. The only two that matter are your API endpoint, which is the same as localhost, but with the port 3001, or in my case, my VPS IP address, suffixed with the port 3001, and your API token, which you set when you first created your node within the original Docker command. So you can additionally also give it a nickname, so node1 or something similar, and save it locally to your browser, just so you can access it easily anytime if you're running multiple nodes or just don't want to enter this information every time. So that's what I've done here, and I will connect to my node. So when you connect to your node, you're initially sent to the information page. So if this is your first time using the HOPR admin, there's three things you want to do. You want to check the information page to see that your node's correctly connected. You want to open a single payment channel to any well-connected node, just so covered traffic can recognize your node and offer you rewards for relaying covered traffic. And you want to turn on promiscuous strategy so your node becomes better connected, and for traffic generated through RPCH or other services using HOPR, you get paid more. So let's start by looking at the information page. And you want to see two main things. One, that your eligibility is set to yes. This means you're actually part of the network. Other nodes can see you and you can connect to pairs. And two, that your connectivity status is either green or yellow. This means you have multiple high-quality connections with your pairs. You can also here see your balances. This is a test node, so I don't have the 30,000 HOPR or 10,000. And I have about 1x down in my node and 1 in my safe. You can see similar information on the right. And this is other information you might want to know, such as various addresses for your node, safe, module, HOPR token contract addresses, and how many nodes you can see on the network, as well as who has channels open with you and the current software running for your node. This is the current release version I'm using, RC9, and the network D4. So the HOPR admin split into two sections on the left. You have your node, which is information about your node, and networking is how you can interact with other nodes on the network. Everything usually has a tooltip, so you can hover over it and get a little bit of information of what you're looking at, as well as FAQ boxes to answer common questions. So on the info page, I've seen that I'm eligible. I have a solid connection. I can move on. So looking at tickets, because this is a test node, my node isn't actually being used much, so I don't have any tickets. Here you can actually redeem all your tickets at once by clicking this button, but the protocol generally auto-redeems tickets periodically every few minutes. So you usually won't have to do this unless you're forced closing a channel and you don't want your tickets to become neglected, in which case it might be a good idea. Or there might be edge cases, otherwise you might want to redeem tickets for. But otherwise, you can look over the tickets and see what each of these mean. And once covered traffic is active for you, these numbers should go up constantly. So I'm going to go ahead and look at metrics. This one I'm not going to spend too much time on because this page will evolve over time and we'll create separate tutorials and guides on how to use the Grafana metrics as well as these metrics to evaluate the health of your node. But this page generally offers a little more detail on how your node is functioning. Again, this is a new test node, so there's not much data here. Finally, for the node section, let's look at configuration. So at the top, you have include recipient, which you can toggle to be false or true. So when you send a message, by default on the HOPR network, you're anonymous. No one knows who sent the message, the receiver just sees the message plain and simple. If you toggle this to be true, they'll see who sent the message. So if you send a message to someone you've aliased Bob, at the bottom of the message, they'll see it came from this peer ID, so they can communicate back with you if they want. Next is strategy. This is the second thing you'd want to do if you're using HOPR admin for the first time, and that is set your strategy to promiscuous. So by default, your strategy is set to passive, which means it doesn't do anything. Your node doesn't do anything on its own. You have to manually open channels or send pings or move funds. By setting to promiscuous, your node will automatically open channels with nodes it has a good connection to, close channels it has a bad connection to, and move funds and reallocate them to support the well-funded channels or the well-connected channels. Random is, as the name suggests, randomly opening channels and moving funds around. This isn't recommended for you, but it is a strategy that's there. For the purpose of this tutorial, I won't toggle on promiscuous strategy, just because I don't want my funds to move during the duration of the tutorial, but you absolutely should. This should help you get more rewards from RPCH traffic or general traffic on the HOPR network, and make your node better connected. You can always run custom strategies using the API, or manage your node daily, constantly, but running a promiscuous strategy is a good alternative. And at the bottom, we have notification toggles. So every action that happens to your node will prompt a notification in the top right, as well as a text square. Some of this can get a little spammy if you're opening channels constantly or messaging constantly. So you can toggle them off just for your own sanity or cleanliness of the UI. So I'm going to leave everything as it is on this page and move on to networking. So this page will let you do the third very important thing you have to do when you're using HOPR admin for the first time, and that is open a channel to a well-connected node. So the peers page lets you view all your visible peers by default in rows of 10. They're ordered by quality of connection. So your quality, the highest quality you can have, highest quality connection you can have with another node is 1, as the connection quality is a percentage represented as a decimal. So the quality of your connection to another node is determined by the heartbeat mechanism of the protocol. So every node on the network, including yours, every 2 seconds pulses a cluster of pings to all the nodes it has visible on the network. So all 293 of these nodes, give or take, will receive a ping every 2 seconds. And then the protocol records the response. So all these nodes that have a 1 connection basically have never missed one of those pings. And if a node misses a ping, then instead of re-tagging it in 2 seconds, it'll get pinged again in 4 seconds. And if it misses that one, then 8 seconds, 16 seconds, 32, and so on until it receives a successful pong back from the ping, and then it'll start pinging again every 2 seconds. And the percentage of successful pings to failed pings is roughly the percentage you'll see here. So all these pings in the top 10, or all these nodes in the top 10, have never missed a ping. So you can consider all of these as very well connected nodes. Generally, anything above 80, 90% is also amazing. So one of these top 10 nodes is one which I want to open a channel to. But before doing that, you'd want to ping and just manually test that it is active. So let's do this, and almost immediately we successfully received a ping or a response within 791 milliseconds. So that's fine. So with this node, I'm actually going to open a channel right now. So again, this is a test node with not very many funds. So I'm just going to add one WX hopper, but this would literally only fund one message. So you should choose a much higher amount, around 50-ish. Okay, I'm going to look at the rest of this page before I check in on that channel because it takes a while for channels to open. So here you can see last seen. This isn't actually determined by the heartbeat mechanism. This is determined via ping bots, which we have running in the background, who periodically ping nodes and then record them for our own metrics. So having a recent last seen that's similar to the top nodes is also very good. These are just the peer IDs and node addresses. And over here it displays an alias if you've set one. So for the node that I have just opened a channel with, I could give it a nickname, such as Bob, just so I remember him better. And that will be displayed right here, as well as on the aliases page, where I can now just interact with him a little bit easier. And the bottom right, you've seen my channel is opening, or has opened. But over here, I'm just going to quickly ping Bob again. You can interact with these nodes that you've aliased, as well as exporting them or adding new aliases. So back to the peers page. And over here, you can also ping nodes via peer ID or identify them as such and export all this data as a CSV file. And export this data as a CSV file, which you might want if you're running custom strategies or using the APIs. So we briefly already looked at the alias page. There's not too much to go over here. If you've created aliases, you can manage them here, interact with those nodes, or even just delete the alias. Before going to messages, let's actually check our channels. So here I have 5 incoming channels already. These are nodes that I've connected to me, not nodes that I've connected to. These guys are probably running promiscuous strategy or some automated strategy and just have chosen my node. Or maybe they've all manually chosen my node. Who knows? And then channel out is who I've opened a channel with. So these are previous channels over here. One that I was pending to close because I've closed it or initiated the process of closing it, but it takes a little while to close, as it has to retrieve the funds within the channel and then close the payment channel. You can actually see the life cycle of channels within the documentation and how they go throughout this process, if you're interested. And then here's the channels that I've opened, one of these being the one I opened just recently. And again, here I can ping the node again, as well as initiating the closure of the channel. So I could click over here and then it would start closing the channel. Closing channels takes a little while because you have to retrieve the funds within the channel and then go through a few processes to close it on chain. Whereas opening is a little bit faster. So finally, let's look at the messages tab. So I have no messages, no one's actually sent me anything. But if we go back to peers, you can send messages as long as you have the correct channels open with nodes. So direct message, you don't need any channels open because the last hop between two nodes is free. It doesn't require any payment. So if I send Bob a message because it's straight to him, no money or channel is needed. Alternatively, you can send messages through automatic parsing, number of hops parsing, and manual parsing. So automatic parsing will find a route of 3 intermediary hops between you and the node you're trying to message. So you enter the receiver's peer ID, who you want to message, and you just hold automatic parse. But these generally won't go through unless you're connected to several nodes because it has to find 3 people or 3 nodes in between you and the receiving node in order to send an automatically parsed message. The network doesn't try to find paths less than 3 because otherwise you have to pad the packet headers, which is fine. To an observer, a message that has 1 hop and 3 hops is the same because the head is packaged to be the same size, so it doesn't look any different. But you're also only mixing it between 1 or 2 nodes instead of 3, so it's very slightly less private. And you can't send a message with more than 3 intermediaries because otherwise the routing information in the packet header would be too big and someone who's looking at the network would be able to see it as an anomaly, and that kind of data we generally don't want to leak within the HOPR protocol. But as I've said, this is a new addition. So for services like RPCH who still want maybe that better latency with extreme privacy, but just not that highest level of privacy at 3 hops, you could choose to use automatic pathing or an automatic routing mechanism with a specified number of paths. So this works almost exactly like automatic pathing, but you either choose 1 or 2 hops instead of 3, or even 0. And then you enter the message as well as the receiver ID, and it'll automatically find a route with the amount of hops you've specified. Again, this is slightly less private, but as long as it's not over 3 hops, which you're not even allowed to do, it's not detrimental. Finally, you can manually enter a path. So here again, you enter a message, the receiver ID, and when you click on this little field, it'll show you exactly how you have to format the path. So people who participated in the Monte Rosa release will remember our old HOPR admin UI, which is fully functional through the command line, and you had to enter a lot of data just like this, and it was a little bit clunky. Now it's a little bit easier to use, or a lot easier to use. Over here, you still have to enter the path comma separated with all the node IDs or peer IDs of the nodes. So here I would enter 3 nodes, all separated by a comma, the message, and hit send, and it would go through, assuming I have the correct channels open. If you want to learn about a little more about channels and messages and what channels you need open to send what messages, you can always look into the documentation. It kind of shows you how these things work. So payment channels are directional. Me having a channel open with you doesn't mean you have a channel open with me. You need channels open for every part of the path minus the last hop. So this, if I was sending a message through this route, this would work even without the last hop, or Chow having a channel open with me. And this would work where all the channels are open. But if any of the first 2 channels are missing, then I couldn't send a message through this path. But otherwise, that is the entire node admin. There's 3 things you should always do if it's your first time using it, and that's check the connection status, toggle on promiscuous strategy, and open 1 payment channel with a well-connected node. We've done all 3 of these, other than promiscuous strategy, which I guess I can toggle on now. And otherwise, you're free to play around with the node admin to your own discretion.